Why? Hello and welcome everybody. Also good morning. I'm coming over some really bad back and hip problems, so hopefully content creation can continue on a nice steady course for you guys, but this year has not been a good one for me. With that being said, let's get into the ritual video. Righteous Fire changes 3.28 for Path of Exile Mirage. Now before we get started, the number one thing that everyone's going to be coming to me for, there was a big change regarding Chieftain. Very small change numerically, very big change overall. So this is the big one. For those of you guys who know Hinakora, the one that does the giant explode on your screen, they have halved the damage, so it originally was 500 and it is down to 250. With that being said, they doubled the explode chance from 5% to 10. Personally, I think this is a win. I think this is a win in every scenario but one, which I'll talk about. So when you're in the campaign, I honestly take this on my second lab. My POB has it set up for third. I'll be taking this, I think, in the POB now for second lab, just to reflect this 10% change. I think it's really good. So your clear speed is going to go up across the board. Why? This is because the 500% damage explode was honestly overkill for most things. There are definitely going to be some stuff that lived back in the day. I say back in the day because the damage is being halved. Maybe some really specific Soul Eater harvest mobs with like really bad map combinations, or same thing with Expedition, right? Maybe there's a super juiced mob in there, or in your ritual and there's a Soul Eater. Basically, unless the mob was an outlier, this explode killed it. Maybe if you're doing like 8 mod corrupted stuff, that's not fully the case, but again, that's a bit more of a niche thing. So in the early maps, when your character has very little gear and you are basically just fishing for those explodes, what that means is like when your damage is really bad, you're like pulling clumps of mobs together to try to get an explode. This 10% is better, right? For sure it's better. When you're in mid-level mapping gear, so, you know, maybe you're like close to level 90, you got your Ignite Pro Lift, you have some basic gear, your character's a couple of Divines, this is still better. Why? Because your character is not really struggling with anything other than bosses, maybe some specific rares, and on those rares, you are never guaranteed to get a 5% explode, but here you have double the chance of getting a 10%, and having any form of extra damage with an RF build is just good. So TLDR, your clear should be better as well, even in mid progression. Furthermore, when you get that Ignite Prolift going, so when you have the glove modifier for Ignite to inflict spread, this is a super buff in my eyes because it's harder to chain explode when you only have a 5% chance to explode, but when you double the chance to explode, unless they did a stealth nerf on the AoE, which would make me cry, our chaining should be way better. And everyone knows you play RF for map clear. You're not like playing the build for bossing. So then I would say at the utmost super top end gear, you still receive a buff. Why? Because Hinakora's base damage is so high that you will always have more damage on your Hinakora than your actual RF and fire trap. Which means if there's a scenario where you're dot capping, your Hinakora most likely dot capped. Which means reducing the damage is just going to allow you to re-achieve dot cap. Not saying you're going to hit it again, but the point I'm trying to make is you're making it more consistent with still a very potent explosion. So I genuinely feel that across the board, things are going to feel better. Now let's talk about the rest of the changes. Here's a buff for us. TLDR, there's going to be a new Fire Mastery on the tree. You spend 1 skill point for 12% fire multi. The Ignite duration doesn't do anything to you. Chieftain's not affected by Ignites. I want to say that this node is extremely powerful because we have access to Nebula Scepter. If you guys remember, we used it last league. It's like freaking 450% LE, maybe even a little bit more because of the implicit. And that makes it so you really want multi, and you're never really going to have enough multi until you go Adorned. This is a piece that gets you slowly closer to that piece of Adorned before ever getting it, right? So very nice. There was one nerf here, and this nerf is an expensive nerf. When I say expensive, I mean it's not everyone had this. The Foulborn Red Dream, which made it so this is the one that exclusively came from last league. Resistance nodes basically added as life nodes at 50% of the value. It was 75%, they nerfed it to 50. This is still a very strong node. This node, you would place... Sorry, I didn't have this pulled up ahead of time. You would essentially place this... Let's see if I have a POB import for it. No, let me just import real fast. I don't know. I don't think that this is going to have it, though, because it's like the League Starter POB, so I don't know if it would. No. Okay. So basically, we would place that jewel here, right? So we can just do, like, Foulborn. Oh, it doesn't even have it here. Okay, my POB might be super out of date. Don't mind me. Anyway, the Foulborn Red Dream, you would put it here. You can actually see it on one of my characters, and each one of these nodes here, so like the Ellie Res gets a little bit of extra life. These turn into Fire Res tattoos, which give you more life. Is a really good jewel. Is a really OP. Every life build used it, so that got a little bit of a hit, as it would make sense. It's still probably really worth it. Really, what it comes down to is the price of it. Very good jewel. We did lose the Toxic Sewers map. It's no longer there. That's not really an RF change numerically, but it's sad to see you go, Toxic Sewers. We got a new belt base from Blight. It's going to be everyone's pre-Mage Blood belt. It's a belt base where, you know how Stygian Vice has the jewel socket? This allows you to put an Anoint on it. So that's a damage option. I like that a lot. There's a new rune graph that we may end up using. It makes it so Arcane Surge gives 15% life recovery. I don't know how we could easily use Arcane Surge since we life tap most of our gear, but this is just something I wanted to figure out. Maybe there's a way we can sneak in some extra recovery, which would be really nice for setting up Annihilation's approach on a somewhat budget. Awakened Gems no longer drop. There's a whole new system for Awakened Gems. This does tie into a key feature later, but that is one thing to note. RF Elementalist is nerfed. It lost even more Golem effect. New Coins of Power allow you to add a level 1 support but corrupt your main skills, so you can have a 7-link RF with level 1 in KoE. This is what I was talking about with the new Awaken Gem system. So like in an ideal world here, we would normally use Awaken in KoE and then we don't use Efficacy. Now I'm going to hope there's like a greater in KoE, and then we can use Coins of Power to get a level 1 Efficacy to put on our Righteous Fire. Now, I believe that this Coin of Power does take up the Volorb slot, which means you're not going to be able to get a 21 gem, to my knowledge. Maybe it either corrupts it or does the coin. I'm not sure how that works. But either way, RF is a perfect candidate for this because the only thing you want is Vol RF, and that's optional. So here, players could choose to instead go for a Coin of Power for another support gem, right? Now, the reason I talked about in KoE is your other gems, or sorry, Efficacy or in KoE would both be fine. Your other gems, they get more damage as they level, and Efficacy does as well, but typically that slot is taken with that other gem, which we currently don't know because Awakened Gems got reworked. In the instance of like burning damage, you'd want to level that, right? Or Elemental Focus, you'd want to level it. So that's kind of why I talked about this specifically. There's a new currency to reroll a Delirium Cluster Jewel, but keep the current mods. Now, this is not cheap, and this is ridiculously expensive, I'd imagine, because what this new currency does is, say you get a, I don't know, 4 passive Trap and Mind Damage cluster, and then there's a really cool Trap and Mind Damage node on there, but we don't want the cluster because we don't want anything else. You could fracture that, then use the new currency and re-roll it into a medium fire cluster, and then get Flow of Life, for example. So I don't think this is really worth talking about, but I thought it was not worth talking about. I don't think it's worth mentioning to the newer players, but definitely some cool tech that can open up from this. Leveling skills are buffed, specifically Holy Flame Totem, but they did not nerf Rolling Magma. So probably still leveling Rolling Magma, but I thought that was a nice thing to maybe note for players. There's a new catalyst that boosts, I think it's prefix or suffix, so 2 different ones, instead of a specific type. So instead of it being LE damage, fire, cold, ice, lightning, whatever, this one specifically hits like all the suffixes or all the prefixes. This will be crazy good for our cogwork ring that we craft because of how much stacked suffixes we get. So definitely some cool stuff. Really excited to see all the future stuff to play with. I'm very excited to play RF this patch. Like we played Freesia, and now I need a good old RF Chieftain again. I'm excited for the damage buff here. I'm excited for the quality of life, I'll call it, on Hinekora. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I do wish I had the 500, but I really don't think so, and the only way to find out is to actually play the character. I just think that it's gonna feel a lot better to map with, which is what I'm excited for. So overall, I'm pretty happy with the patch. We'll do another video kind of covering all the different things in the patch itself, but this one, as usual, I wanted to kind of just be on RF specifically. So overall TLDR, I think leveling is going to be faster. I think mid game is going to be better. I think late game is going to be better. I think it's just going to be better. So catch you guys all later. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you guys enjoyed, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget, you can catch me streaming every day live at twitch.tv/Pohx. I normally don't stream on Sundays, but I always do a special stream for League launches. So catch you guys later, and thanks for watching.